We're back with episode 6 of The Step Through, a weekly show about the WNBA, hosted by myself, Sabreena Merchant, and Evan Gualberto. For our regular listeners and viewers, sorry about not recording last week. We were in a period of mourning after Nneka Ogwumike was left off of the Olympic team. So we're happy to be back talking about this week in the W. Evan, how are you doing?
I'm still mourning.
You and me both, man. If only we could have taken a 2-week break to mourn. Yeah.
Just taking a break until Olympic break. So
until Nneka Ogwumike gets added to the 2024 Olympic team, that's what I wanted to do.
Kathy, we know you're missing our episodes. Step in. Anyway.
Yeah. If you have, just any questions about why Nneka should have been on the Olympic team, I think the place that captured it the best was the Around the Rim podcast that LaChina Robinson hosts. She had Michelle Vopel on this week, and Michelle explained just how the USA basketball has changed the goalposts, that's Michelle's phrasing, on Nneka over the last 3 Olympic cycles, and it is well worth a listen. But suffice to say, I am upset, not happy about it, and we're just going to move on to something else.
Well, I mean, why not start exactly there? If you're not going to make Team USA, I mean, she hasn't played enough games to make All-Star, even though we talked right before we started recording about the very confusing top 36 process. I won't ask you to explain that because, I mean...
We already did, actually.
Yep. God knows you've gone over it a couple of times and still haven't processed how it... I get how it works. I just don't understand the why of it all. But we can just start with All-Star. How... Do you have any All-Star reactions?
Should we start with Evin Asks right away, Evan?
Yes, I have another question for later. Actually, no, you know what? I'm gonna ask you now. Did you have a problem with how All-Stars were announced?
I like to think that this is a positive show for you and I, and we're just starting right off the bat with just things that I didn't like, but here we are. Apparently, ESPN thought it was a service to the WNBA to announce their All-Stars on The Jump, which is a very well-respected show in the NBA community, but it is a show for the NBA community. It is not a basketball show. It is an NBA show. And their coverage of the WNBA is lacking because people on the show do not care about the WNBA, which is fine. Not everybody can be versed in every single league. If, however, you are going to be announcing the WNBA All-Stars on a show, you would think that a network like ESPN that broadcasts WNBA games, that has a deep pool of WNBA talent. We're talking Ryan Rugo, Rebecca Lobo, Holly Rowe, their main crew. You've got LaChina Robinson, you've got Michelle Vopel, you've got Kevin Pelton. I mean, Ramona Shelburne dips into the WNBA now and then. There are resources you could tap into to make this a presentation. And yet we are left with Rachel Nichols reading the names off of a board, not pronouncing all of them correctly. Her, Richard Jefferson, and Kendrick Perkins clapping at the announcements as if this has been like some citizenship award at the 8th grade graduation of your nephew. And then saying, oh my God, look at all of these role models on the list. I can guarantee you on a TNT presentation of the NBA All-Stars, the last word out of Charles Barkley's mouth about any of these players is, oh my God, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, look at those role models. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for an analysis of these All-Stars, which we did not get. We got highlights of 5 of them, none of the first-time All-Stars, which you think would be more of a service to be like, hey, these players who you haven't seen in the All-Star game, let's show you clips of them. No, we didn't get that. We got just a graphic, some clapping, mispronunciation, and a disservice to a game that I believe is being broadcast on ESPN. So yeah, it sucked, and I was unhappy about it.
I am laughing at your outrage because, I mean, I wasn't happy about it either, but I didn't realize we would be getting this.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you were talking about the Indiana Fever or something. Just so much contempt. No.
It'd be really easy to just get somebody who knows about the league you can even put it on NBA TV if it's too hard to find a spot on ESPN. Like they have WNBA Weekly on NBA TV. Why not add into that? I think that'd be a very good way of showcasing the All-Stars. They know who they're talking about. Like maybe it's not as large of a platform as the Jump, but it would be better presented, you know.
I absolutely agree. I don't understand why they did, but it's also too like I caught a rerun, or I didn't catch a rerun. I was walking by and there was a TV in place after we had talked about it, after we had texted about it. And it if I turned my head at the wrong time and I turned back, it would have been over. I would have missed all of it.
There
And
would have
that's
been more clapping happening, Evin.
just
Just more clapping.
I just whew, okay. So if we're going to talk about Team USA versus the All-Stars, were there any, we know there have been lots of discussions about who should have made Team USA besides just Nneka, but who do you think was snubbed? And who do you think was very badly snubbed for All-Star?
Got it. So I think the first snub for Team USA that came to mind, other than Nneka, was Arike Ogunbowale, and she is on the All-Star team, deservedly so. You've got her and Sloot, who I would imagine would be your starting backcourt against Team USA. Love that. You've got Jonquel Jones, Betnijah Laney, DeWanna Bonner, Candace Parker, Bree Jones. Love, love, love all of those selections. The last four, I have, a little more mixed feelings about. I'm not going to say that they're not deserving, not all of them by any means, but I think there was less consensus around the final four than those 8 names that I just mentioned. So we've got Courtney Williams also in the backcourt. I like Courtney Williams quite a bit. Excellent mid-range shooter throughout her career. She's taken the initiative to step back on a lot of those mid-rangers, add more threes to her repertoire this year. That makes her a far more efficient offensive player. If you're going to give credit to someone from Atlanta's backcourt, I guess the decision was to give it to Courtney Williams because Kennedy Carter and Tiffany Hayes have been hurt for portions of the season. Carter's only played 9 games at the point of us recording. Hayes has played 11. So I guess out of that backcourt triumvirate, Courtney Williams was the one who got the recognition. That's fine. I'm glad Atlanta has an all-star. I like Courtney Williams' game quite a bit, and one of the best rebounding guards in the league. We're good. Then we have Dearica Hamby, who would be the 4th all-star from the Las Vegas Aces, because Chelsea Gray and A'ja Wilson are obviously on the Team USA all-star team. Having 4 all-stars is a lot for a team with 12 players. Just mathematically, it's a lot of all-stars. And for it to be someone who comes off the bench, it's kind of surprising. Obviously, Dearica Hamby, 2-time reigning 6th Woman of the Year, very important to what the Vegas Aces do. Not so important that she should be starting, according to Bill Laimbeer, but very important to what the Vegas team is doing. I personally thought Jackie Young had a strong case to be an all-star. I like what Hamby does defensively quite a bit, but I think what Jackie Young does as a ball handler in terms of just getting to the line, getting the Aces in the bonus regularly, her physicality, getting to the rim, it's been a really good year for Jackie. We're going to talk about her a little bit later in the show, but that was a name that was kind of surprising to me that wasn't on the list. And not only was she not selected, she wasn't even in the top 36 that the coaches were able to select from. So that's a bit strange to me, especially because all-star voting is kind of a popularity contest, but there's a lot of Las Vegas Aces fans. So why is Jackie Young being the one left off?
Yes. Just a quick, she went to Notre Dame.
Oh, right.
It's important for us to note that, apparently, I guess. Shout out to the aggregators. I don't think there are aggregators for this. Anyway, but yeah, so the process, like you were talking about, is the coaches decide from the pool of 36. Mm-hmm. Just to quickly touch back on Tiffany Hayes, I believe I read, I can link it in the description below because I'll have to go find it after. But I believe I read somewhere that Bill Laimbeer spoke about Tiffany Hayes being, in his eyes, the biggest snub. Tiffany Hayes, for the record, top 10 in scoring and 1.5 steals per game. That's better than Sylvia Fowles, Courtney Williams, DeWanna Bonner, Bree Jones, Liz Cambage, Kalia Copper. Better than all of them, but didn't make that top 36. Jackie Young, I have absolutely zero problems with you saying that she is a more deserving All-Star. I really don't know how to gauge the 3-on-3 players either. And, you know, we can talk a little bit about Satou because if we're going to...
She is a 3-on-3 player, just not for the US.
Yes. But I don't... Katie Lou Samuelson is somebody who was on the top 36 list. And she was very important for the game we're going to be talking about. But I don't necessarily think that she is more deserving than, say, a Tiffany Hayes or a Erica Wheeler. From, as I've talked about in previous episodes, the Sparks players that we've discussed, like Erica Wheeler is someone who you can feel her presence every single second she's out there. And she takes over games in such a way. And so, like, if you're going to place value on that, I don't necessarily know if she was deserving of an all-star nod more on top of, like, these other players. But if you're looking at the list of 36, I believe she's more deserving than some of the names on there.
Yeah, I mean, she leads the league in clutch points per game, right? Like that's something. To me, that suggests top third in the WNBA, which is what that list of 36 represents. And considering that the Sparks representation was the two Ogunbowale sisters who have combined for maybe 8 games this season, and Amanda Zahui, who, don't get me wrong, love Amanda Zahui deservedly in that 36 spot, I would think, because of her contribution everywhere for the Sparks so far this season. Just surprising that Wheeler didn't make that list. Again, like, not to say that, I think you phrased it quite well, not to say that she's sort of been an all-star, but just to not even make that first cut is somewhat surprising. Another player who didn't make that cut also kind of surprised me was Sami Whitcomb, who, not the best player on the Liberty, that would clearly be Betnijah Laney, but she is just so important to what New York is doing, right? Like the spacing that she provides, defense, shooting, like she's had like multiple 30-point games. I mean, I was surprised, like to me, she's been a top 5 shooting guard this season, right? Like, so that would put her in all-star consideration. I just don't see where the disconnect was that, like, obviously Sabreena is getting to get some fan vote and that's why she makes top 36, but for her not to be on that list was also a little confusing to me. I think she's been having a better season than Kalia Copper personally, but neither here nor there.
Yeah. So I have a couple of Sami Whitcomb stats just from Synergy. Just wanted to change it up. Some stuff that blew my mind. We've talked about this with Sylvia Fowles. Is 99th percentile is the max I've ever seen on Synergy until the Sylvia Fowles thing, where we saw something where she was in the 100th percentile of a play type. Sami Whitcomb is that player. She generates 1.406 points per possession on all jump shots off the dribble, which puts her in the 100th percentile. Another stat, 1.4 points per possession on spot ups, which puts her in the 99th percentile in the league. The only player in the 100th percentile is Jonquel Jones on spot ups. And I mean, we've talked enough about Jonquel. So
yeah,
it's just extremely surprising to me because, like, you know, Sabreena went down with an injury. Yes, Betnijah Laney is a deserving all-star. We've talked about her enough, I think. But
she's all that.
Yes, she is all that. But the fact that she is not, that Sami Whitcomb is not in the top 36, it blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, you know, just wanted to give a little love to players who we've enjoyed watching, who, for whatever reason, were not on this list. I know we've talked about Wheeler and Whitcomb, and Marina Mabrey was on the list, didn't make the All-Star team. I've talked plenty about Marina Mabrey. Kudos to her for getting on the list. I guess she was edged off by her Dallas teammate, Satou Sabally, which came as a surprise to me. The more I digged into Satou's numbers, the more I realized, like, I think I had just put her off my radar because she missed the start of the season with her international commitments. She's been quite good, like really efficient, putting up good box score numbers, like for whatever that's worth. Obviously, Marina has taken a lesser role with Alicia Gray and Satou back in the lineup. She's coming off the bench. It's hard to come off the bench and be an all-star unless, of course, you're Dearica Hamby. So I like the Sabally selection, actually. I mean, if you would ask me if she or Sabreena Ionescu would have been an all-star first, I definitely would have taken Sabreena. So that's kind of surprising. But hey, good for Satou. It's an interesting selection, but I think it's kind of cool recognition, like that she would be the second Dallas player chosen.
Right. Yeah. And I have, like I said, it's not as if any of these players are not deserving. It's just, the process, I think, is what I'm getting hung up on a lot. My other question was going to be, do German votes count for more than other votes? But that's neither here nor there. Okay.
Hey, you do you, Satou. She had to get through the coaches vote, which I imagine they take seriously. Like, I don't think the players take this stuff seriously at all. If it's anything like the NBA voting, and if it's anything like the anonymous surveys that I conducted the one season I worked at The Athletic, the players do not take this stuff seriously, but coaches do. So,
yep.
Good for her.
Yeah. If I would like to know if there is ever a way to find out who the coaches voted for. I would love to know who Bill Laimbeer voted for, because I imagine he is
no Seattle players.
Of course. Nope, not at all.
No one who takes a majority of their shots is 3-pointers.
So it's a bunch of bigs. Bill,
yeah,
it's a bunch of bigs. For any guards.
Not like Zowie though. Zowie takes too many threes.
That's true. Yeah, just so much left to be desired about the process, the announcements, everything.
But the game itself, I'm quite looking forward to, because like I said earlier, you've got that backcourt of Arike and Sloot. You've got this front court of, let's say, Bonner, Jonquel, and CP3 starting off, and they're going to be going up against like A'ja Wilson, Tina Charles, Sabina Fowles. I mean, it's going to be fun, depending on how seriously both sides take it. But you would have to believe that like Liz Cambage would be very excited to go up against A'ja Wilson in a game. You'd have to believe that Candace Parker and her notorious distaste for USA basketball would be very excited to give it all for this game. And also giving it up for her friend Nneka Ogwumike, who did not make the team. So I look forward to seeing big game from Candace. Would love to see all three of the Connecticut players together, maybe even throw in Courtney Williams with them for all time's sake. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great time, and like just so much talent on this all-star team. Like, you and I have obviously have our disagreements about certain aspects, but like this is a really good team, and it's going to be very cool to see them hopefully put on like an actual show against Team USA.
Yeah, and if nothing else, if the all-stars aren't willing, I believe there's at least one player, Arike, who she views this as a snub, and she will empty the clip against Team USA.
I mean, I imagine she'll be matched up against Jewell Loyd at certain points, and we've seen those Dallas-Seattle games. She likes that matchup.
She really does. I have a follow-up question. I don't think I've seen anywhere, how is the coaching getting decided for this?
Oh, yeah. So Dawn Staley's coaching Team USA, and Cynthia Cooper-Dyke and Lisa Leslie are the coaches for the All-Star team.
Interesting.
As part of the 25th anniversary celebration, they were like two of the inaugural picks in WNBA.
That makes sense. Do you think there's a possibility? I'm asking you so many questions. Do you think there's a possibility that Lisa would like open the door for Nneka to sit on the bench? Do you think?
You'd have to imagine that Nneka would be in Vegas for this event as the president of the Players Association, right? This is a big day for the W. She'll be here. She'll be sitting close to the bench, I'm sure, just by virtue of her being assigned a good seat in the arena. If anyone needs an injury replacement, like, you got to believe that Nneka is number one with a bullet on this list. If like Jonquel just decides, hey, I played a lot this year, ECAT, Connecticut, Bosnia, I'm going to take a breather for a day. Who better to fill in her spot? Especially with Lisa Leslie potentially making this decision, I think it'd be fun.
It's there. Okay, so speaking of, we had pre-decided our game of
Yeah.
the week. And I mean, it's never going to disappoint, I feel, because of the number of all-stars and members of Team USA in it. Just sorry, M. Aces Storm from Sunday, the don't remember the date, but
That was so weird. June 27th was the date.
got it. Time is a flat circle for me. Okay, just is there anything you would like to talk about before we jump into it?
No, let's just jump in because
Okay.
hey, I would like to say that this is a big game for the Commissioner's Cup. Vegas was falling behind, and having won this one at the expense of Seattle means they still have a shot to make the final, which I guess is kind of cool. I mean, I, for one, would just rather have more Vegas Storm games, but I do think that Storm Sun and Vegas Sun are also really good options, or if the Sky happen to sneak in. So, yeah, more intrigue for the final week before the Olympic break now that Vegas won this game.
Yes. Weird thing, we decided this before we started recording, but I would take the first half, and you're going to take the second half because it's just there's so many things.
So much goodness, yeah.
Before we get into it, just super strange. The Storm jumped out to a 42-37 lead at halftime, despite turning the ball over 13 times. The Aces turned the ball over 9 times. The second half was very, very different from the first half. The Storm and Aces turned it over twice each in regulation and once each in overtime. No Storm turnovers in the third quarter and no Aces turnovers in the fourth quarter. Just, yeah. So
Hey, two teams recognizing the magnitude of the moment, right? No easy giveaways.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about, I don't know if we're going to talk a lot about it, but I would like to highlight right off of tip-off, they opened the game with this Iverson set where Jackie Young cuts across, and as soon as she comes off of Cambage, Liz then dives right to the basket. And as soon as Jackie comes off of Asia, the ball is entered into the elbow and they go high-low. So the Storm converge, and Riquna Williams gets an open corner 3 and nails it. And it's just like, it's this weird, like, sort of scrambly play. And that's the exact way the Storm score also. So Stewie brings the ball down in Chicago action for Jewell Loyd, and Chelsea and Riquna like switch the guard action, and eventually it turns into an empty pick and roll between Sue and Stewie, and Riquna and Asia switch that. So Brionna rolls into the post and Liz scram switches, or tries to anyway, but Stewie is able to catch, turn, and fade before Liz even gets there, and that's how the Storm score their first basket. And it's just this weird, like, the ball is flying around. The Aces, I don't really know why they're switching everything, because you don't have to switch that action. And that's a common thing you'll see throughout this first half. And yeah, I don't want to jump on anything that you have to say about the second half, but the unnecessary switching was very confusing to me.
I mean, you and I talked about that like on a very important play at the end about this switching, so I think it'll come back.
Yes. It's just there's so there are moments where Bill Laimbeer looks like just the smartest man in basketball sometimes, and there are moments where it's like, nope, he's definitely not. So it's okay. So for this one, Mercedes Russell, great effort to come away with an offensive board to keep this possession alive. And then for my money, I think it's the pass of the game, just because like it blew my mind when I saw it. Somehow I forgot about it. And then when I rewatched it, it blew my mind again. So Mercedes Russell, great offensive board. And then she gets it to Jewell Loyd, who, like, I don't know how she, one, sees Katie Lou, two, maintains control of the basketball, but she's able to catch and redirect it all without like having any possession of the ball, really. Absolute whip of a pass. Katie Lou scores, and then she sprints back and intercepts a Chelsea Gray hit ahead pass, and then makes a diving save that eventually leads to, I mean, anything Breanna Stewart does looks awesome, but this like hezzy lefty scoop. Yeah. So like I don't know if you, the viewer, are enjoying this aspect of like just play breakdowns instead of like going through the action, but the first half is sloppy, so I'm just gonna go with it. So Veer action where Sue gets a middle pick and roll from Stewie, who then goes to set a wide pin down for Jewell, which gets her eventually deep post position. What's interesting here, again, is that Kelsey Plum switches onto Stewie, but then when that pin down happens, she doesn't swap with Chelsea, who you don't have to be an analyst to recognize that like Chelsea is bigger than Kelsey. So they don't switch. She ends up getting posted, and I mean Breanna Stewart's gonna score over a lot of people anyway. So catch, turn, fire, hits. I don't know.
It's funny. I have in my notes a lot from the second half, like, damn, Stewie's really good. And I kept trying to think of how am I going to phrase this in a better way. But sometimes it's just, oh no, damn, Stewie's very good. Like, there's a reason why people consider her the best player in the world.
There's nothing she can't do on either end, really. And it just, why you would bother switching a guard onto her when like-sized players have a hard time containing her as is. So here I have in my notes, is Bill a genius ? And you know, I kind of touched on that earlier. When the Aces play with one of Wilson and Cambage, the offense looks positively modern. Delay action, one of them, like the high-low, comes from the top players behind the three-point line, optimizing that spacing, and Liz can just go in and go to work, like whatever. Here in particular, this floppy set, but then Aja gets the ball at the elbow, and there's all manner of action around her. And then I can just imagine this in a playoff setting, like all this happening. Somebody's going to get wide open. I mean, Jackie Young gets a wide open jumper here and misses, but, you know, it's a good process. It looks great when it's just one of them. It looks like an offense you'd see in 2021 versus, I understand Liz and Aja like playing together, that high-low, all that stuff. Like, that's all cool, but it looks so different when one of them is
How dare you disrespect high-low passing, Evin? One of my very favorite things.
It's just the spacing. What I would really love if the reigning MVP just took like a few steps back and was just behind the three-point line for that high-low, because I know she can make that pass. It's an easy, great pass to make. There was that Dallas game where they went to this UCLA set over and over and over to close the game out, and Liz was the one who would like flash to the three-point line, and like at one point Liz was just like, I don't have the entry pass, I'm gonna shoot it, and she hit a three, and it was in Las Vegas, and everyone lost their minds. Just like, just give me more of that, please. Anyway. Okay. So side pick and roll with Chelsea and Liz. And it looks like Jewell Loyd is going to ice this, but then Liz slips. So Candice Dupree comes over and tags her, and Mercedes bumps Chelsea as Jewell is recovering. And so it almost looks like a trap, but, you know, it maybe a hedge. So Chelsea tries to force a pass, and Jewell tips it and generates a turnover. The opportunistic trapping from Seattle was super interesting to me, and I think was a big part of why they were able to generate that many turnovers. They were able to generate that many Las Vegas turnovers in the first half. And eventually the Aces figured it out, and I don't want to say Noel Quinn like galaxy brained herself at the end, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Stephanie Talbot, a name you mentioned in previous episodes. Cool little set for her here. She sets a step-up screen. early offense for Jordan Canada, and then cuts to the weak side corner, and then the ball gets swung around, and then Talbot is the recipient of Chicago action. And then, okay, so I'll slow this down, but like, look at all the unnecessary switching here.
I hope the viewers can see the pain on your face at all of this.
I'll leave that part. So, I mean, maybe I don't know Stephanie Talbot's game as well as others, but I guess I should ask you: is Stephanie Talbot like an explosive off the dribble player?
I mean, that's not the first thing I would say about her game, but she's got good size for her position. She's, she's a tougher cover than you might expect.
Right. I agree. Like but here she's able to attack off the dribble, and like, I mean, she looks like who do somebody with a great first step. I don't know. Tiffany Hayes.
Tiffany Hayes.
she looks like Tiffany Hayes here, because like it almost looks like Liz and Chelsea like bump into each other. That's how explosive Stephanie Talbot is turning the corner. So you get a wide open layup. Just confusing with all the switching. Sorry, Stephanie, if you're watching this. I'm a fan of your game. I just don't think that like.
Also, not a top 36 All-Star selection for Stephanie Talbot, which is weird. I like her game a lot. I think she's been really good for Seattle.
Yeah, going to be. I don't know if she's going to be a member of Team Australia.
She and Ezzy Magbagor both will be.
Okay, great. Team Australia. Maybe it was just Liz trying to get her to look good. Maybe. Who knows? I'm sorry, Stephanie Talbot. I'm sorry. Okay. So the Aces, zipper action here on a sideline out of bounds play. Zipper into a pick and roll between Liz and Kelsey. And I've talked about this concept before, especially with the Connecticut Sun. Liz rolls and Asia replaces, and the ball gets swung high-low, post score. It can't get any easier for Liz, but it's just a couple steps back. Just a little bit more room. Okay.
It was so funny when Asia took a three on like, what was it, the very first possession of preseason, and like everyone on Twitter was so very excited, and that was her only 3-point attempt. Yeah.
Okay. Weird one. Top 36 player according to the voting. Katie Lou Samuelson. Double stagger for her to free up to go set a ball screen. So Breanna Stewart is the second screener. Sue then dribbles into a second ball screen. Breanna Stewart turns around after setting that down screen to set a ball screen. And then Katie Lou goes to set a screen so Brionna can flare off of her. Now, the weird thing about this is like it's a lot of action, and it's very confusing for a defense to manage anyway. But all this switching means that Katie Lou has post position on Jackie Young. And
sorry, I just got a notification that the Seattle Storm have waived Candice Dupree.
Oh.
Who is on a guaranteed contract.
My mind is what?
Sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted you. That just kind of threw me for a loop.
That's important. That's so strange.
I mean, I know she wasn't like getting a lot of minutes with the core three of Seattle, Bird, Loyd, Stewie. And like the backup center thing clearly wasn't working. Like they like Ezzy better there in that position, but wow, that is so weird. That's like a lot of money they're eating, isn't it? Yeah, like you and I have talked about Dupree, like not sure she's like the biggest, like the best fit, I should say, the cleanest fit for what Seattle likes to do, but I thought it was getting better.
Yeah.
And she's obviously a very talented scorer, and she's fitting into that defensive system. Like that was nice recovery on Liz on that trap that you were showing earlier.
Yes.
Candice Dupree. Was she like the fourth leading scorer in WNBA history? Yeah, Candace is fourth all time. I'm flummoxed.
The strange thing for me in that way is that like I understand, like fine, they're not the most ideal fit, but Candice Dupree is very much a player who can come back to hurt you if given a different context. So
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. And I mean, it's not as if the fit was terrible.
Right. It was a little weird, but she was guaranteed this year. So it's not saving them money. It's just creating a roster spot. Like, are they trying to bring Riquna Williams back after waiving her? I mean, this is so strange.
What I would really like is for this not to be resolved until the episode comes out. Selfishly.
Yeah, let's hope for that. Let's hope for that.
I don't know how to carry on now. I have some.
I'm sorry.
No. Breaking news never happens on the podcast. I don't. Okay, I guess some sort of Vegas was doing some sort of switch nonsense. Okay. To recap, I guess I'll just jump back in. Katie Lou double stagger and then is a part of a double ball screen and then sets a flare screen for Stewie. Vegas is switching everything unnecessarily. So Katie Lou ends up with post position on Jackie Young. And Stewie has the ball at the top of the key with Chelsea Gray on her. The most difficult part, I think, of all this like switching is that your bigs have to be in a position to help because like there are so many mismatches. And in this case, somebody gets a defensive 3-second call, and that's because you have to be paying attention to all of this stuff. And like, yeah, free throws for Stewie are an automatic thing. The only other thing I have from the first half is triangle action here. Chelsea hit ahead to Jackie. Asia's posting up, hit ahead to Jackie on the wing, and then she cuts straight to the corner, sets a little brush screen for Jackie. And then Riquna gets a sort of brush screen from Liz on the weak side and gets her an open triple. And just, yeah, I think Riquna Williams was a not small deal in this game.
It is a little unpleasant to watch Chelsea Gray and Riquna Williams excel for a non-Sparks team. Just a little unpleasant, I would say. But yeah, Riquna Williams may not be a part of the closing lineups, but she is definitely important in helping Vegas get out to good starts. And yeah, they were down 5 or whatever at halftime, but Riquna doesn't hit those threes and we're in a world of hurt, going into the second half if you're Las Vegas. Like you said, there's elements of Vegas that feel modern, and having the spacing of Riquna Williams, like there's sets where Riquna and Kelsey Plum are on the court together and it's like, is this spacing? Like, are we having multiple people stand outside of the 3-point line for the purpose of scoring on the same aces possession? Like, mind-blowing, really.
Yeah.
To have all of that happening, it's just.
Yeah, they'll both shoot them. Shoot them. And I mean, Chelsea also shoots from deep. But it's just, why not give Liz and Asia like just as much space as possible? I understand. I've done an Asia Wilson highlight video. Like, I know how capable she is of scoring. Like, even though there's literally no room to breathe. Not literally. That was but like surrounded by like 4 players, 3 defenders, and like her own teammate. Why not just make it just a little bit easier? Like, as the viewer will see, like down the stretch of this game, like the reigning MVP and her ability to make tough buckets is kind of what won them this game. And just make it a little easier.
But some of the fun of watching the Aces play is how they maneuver in tight spaces. Like their very first score of the second half, we've got Jackie Young in the corner. She draws 2 defenders to her in the corner, which, what do you do in Seattle? She gets it into Asia, who's, at the edge of the post. Asia's now being covered by Mercedes because her defender went to double on Jackie. And now Asia just flips it over to Liz, who is being covered by Sue Bird in help. And what do you think is going to happen when Liz is being covered by Sue Bird by the basket? I'll let you guess while the video plays. Yeah, I love watching Vegas have to navigate these tight channels, even though they theoretically could make their job much easier. I am almost impressed by how they function, even when they're artificially imposing constraints upon themselves. Like, they could do just simple things, right? Like, there's a lot of actions in the fourth quarter where Chelsea Gray, they're playing their big lineup, right? With Chelsea, another guard, either Jackie Young or Kelsey Plum, and then you've got the three bigs with Hamby, Asia, and Cambage. And Seattle doesn't really have a counter for that, so they have just smaller guards on Chelsea at all times, and Chelsea just sets up shop in the post and backs down Jewell Loyd. And I'm almost surprised she doesn't do like the too small gesture as she runs back down the court. Like that's how big of a size disadvantage we're working with. There's just, it's so weird to watch Vegas work because, like, again, it seems like it could be so much easier if you just took a couple steps out of the 3-point line. Like we talked about this a couple weeks back when we were talking about Kelsey Plum, how, when you have her and Liz in a 2-player action and you can't double Liz in the post because then Kelsey's just one pass away. There was one play where I think it was Riquna and Kelsey, maybe it was Jackie Young and Kelsey, where Jackie delivers the entry pass to Liz and they double Liz and Kelsey's now 2 passes away, but Liz can make that skip really easily and Kelsey Plum just hits the 3. And lo and behold, like this stuff just makes posting up so much easier when you have one credible shooter outside instead of Danielle Robinson and Lindsay Allen and Angel McCautry, right? Like what a magnificent improvement this has been in terms of Las Vegas's spacing. Just some things that like you said, make you wonder if Bill Laimbeer is the smartest guy in the world or not.
Just
one or the other.
Yeah. Can I get Galaxy Brain here? Is maybe Bill is so sure that there's going to be no room for his post players to breathe in the playoffs that he, like you said, artificially puts these constraints on them so they can play through it. So they get the reps of, hey, I can't operate at all, but I'm still going to make this shot. Maybe that's it.
They get better in the playoffs seemingly every year. Not actually, I shouldn't say that. They weren't better last year because they had all of the injuries, but like their rotations get better in the playoffs. So he's just trying to create situations where they have to work harder, right? And then they'll be more equipped for those difficulties that may face them in the postseason. But
right. So
I do want to talk about Seattle's offense for a little bit because, like I mentioned earlier, Breanna Stewart, just what a delight to watch. I mean, Rebecca Lobo was mentioning this on the broadcast. Like you run 2-player actions with her and Sue Bird, empty one side of the floor. Good things are going to happen basically every freaking time down the floor. Like it is so frustrating to watch Seattle come down the floor and run an ISO for like Jewell Loyd or Stewie. And it's just, you can do so many other things, like literally a bazillion other things. And to reduce your offense to something that simplistic offends me personally, that you would just not want to do something better. Like I said, like these 2 very best teams in W, right? All apologies to Connecticut. I maintain some questions about their offense. The fact that it seems like they're leaving so much on the table sometimes, it's just like, why are we doing this? Is it because it's a regular season game? I don't know. But, Seattle, just a team you cannot turn the ball over against because, you turn the ball over in the paint. Breanna Stewart's running the ball down your throat. She had this one sequence where I don't even know how she maintained the handle for the full 90 feet. And then she flips it over to Mercedes Russell, who has to catch the ball on the left side of the rim with her left hand and finishes offhand. It's stupidly cool. I love watching Mercedes Russell finish around the rim. I know maybe she's not an all-star, but she's like a clinical finisher around the rim. Very Bree Jones-esque, just not getting the same volume of opportunities that Bree is because, again, lots of other all-stars on the Seattle roster. The Jewell Loyd minutes, kind of a problem in this game. Like it got to the point where they were using Jordan Canada just because Loyd couldn't hold up against Gray on defense. And I thought that was interesting because like Canada, you watch her defend and like there is sequences where like Kelsey Plum tries to drive at her and she completely stays on her body and then also gets back out to contest Plum's 3-point attempt. Like you can see exactly what sort of defensive potential they see in her, but she's just not a point guard, I don't think. And like they're always running her with Epiphany Prince or Sue Bird. It doesn't seem like they think of her as one credibly on offense. And it kind of hurt in the 4th quarter when they had to play her just to get some sort of defensive integrity because they don't guard her, right? Like she hit one jumper and that's kind of a bailout because that's a win for the Vegas defense if Jordan Canada has to take like an 18-footer at the end of a possession, right? Like you're totally happy with that. I should just talk about Chelsea Gray for a little bit because Chelsea Gray, the closer, like I've seen this for a very long time. She hit game-winning shots a lot in the Sparks championship run. Her 2019 season when she was the lead ball handler for the Sparks. Just lots of clutch things. I mentioned her a little bit in the post, but her ability to like read doubles in the half court is really impressive. Like you mentioned that Seattle was doing kind of janky things with their defense. Like it's not entirely sure what was happening. You know, Liz gets doubled in the post on this play in the fourth quarter. Chelsea just sort of keeps things going. Like the ball swings back out to the 3-point line, gets to Chelsea. She finds Dearica Hamby just cutting in baseline. Like, I don't know how she saw that. I'm not sure like if a normal point guard would have seen that, but Chelsea Gray is not a normal point guard, right? No. Sometimes it gets her in a little bit of trouble, right? Like she threw a behind the back pass that almost resulted in a turnover. Jackie Young ends up having to bail out the possession, which again, Jackie Young, not in the top 36 of All-Star selections. Yeah. I mean, watching Chelsea Gray ISO, like I don't feel like we're leaving things on the table because she can get to her spot against basically any defender you throw at her, right? Like near the end of the game with about a minute 20 left in regulation, she gets Sue Bird on her, just sets up shop on the baseline, fadeaway J over Sue Bird, easy, right? Like we don't need to complicate this because like what are you supposed to do when you're guarding Chelsea Gray with Sue Bird? Like I send help, like they didn't do that. So
right.
I would have loved to see like in a normally talented lineup, not an absurdly talented lineup like Vegas, you could throw bigger defenders at Chelsea Gray. But then what happens is obviously you use your size on the perimeter, and Vegas is so good at just finding the mismatches in the post. Like they immediately get the ball to Liz or Asia until, you know, against whoever small is guarding them, and then you're done. Like there's just no working around that. So it's too bad that we can't see someone with the size of Stewie guard Chelsea Gray like on a regular basis, which admittedly did not work out very well at the end of the game, but on a more regular diet of that, I think would be interesting to see if that were possible. Stewie though, just there's this one run that she had 3 consecutive possessions in the fourth quarter where she has this finish in traffic over Kelsey Plum. Like poor Kelsey just kept getting switched onto Stewie at the end of possessions, and that's where the possession would end because this is exactly the matchup that Stewie is looking for. She just finishes over her time and time again. Then she comes back down, makes a rotation in the paint, blocks A'ja Wilson, I think, right at the basket. She had a number of just really disrespectful blocks on the reigning MVP, I gotta tell you. Just not nice. And then she comes right back down. I think Jewell like lobs her a pass in the post, and she just immediately delivers a touch pass back down to Ezi Magbouwer, who unfortunately is fouled before like she can actually score. But like if that had resulted in a score, my goodness, I would have like I just wrote like WTF in my notes. Like I don't know what is happening on this Stewart pass. It's so cool. Yep. She just has these stretches where like I just can't help but marvel. Like, oh my God, she is so good at this game. Like. And she's having to guard A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson's guarding her. This is no slouch. Like Dearica Hamby's guarding her. I'm sorry, not just A'ja Wilson. And like, it's no obstacle for her. Like there was that one play at the start of the first half where it looked like she was going to get free throws, and they ruled that it was a side out of bounds. And so Sue just immediately gets her the ball, like for this 20-foot elbow jumper, not a good shot at all, but she just drains it as if to say, like, I got my 2 points. Thanks. Like, yeah, that's what Stewie is.
God, she's incredible. Mm-hmm. Buy her shoe.
Yeah.
Link
Pumas,
below.
yeah.
I think. Yeah. No. It just blows my mind. I was talking to. God, Em is getting a lot of shouts on this pod.
She is a Storm beat writer, so you know.
Well, yeah, but I was talking to Em, and it's just roll, slip, ghost, flare, pop, like whatever you have, you just have Stewie as your screener, and like what are you gonna do as the defense? Because like it doesn't really matter what you do, Stewie has the answer, and it's an easy answer. So it just blows my mind. She's so unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's too like I don't think she did anything wrong at the end of the game. You know, like the possession where they're down 2 and they have to tie, like Sue Bird and Brionna just run a pick and roll, right? Like they get the switch, rescreen after Liz, you know, scrams off, and then now Liz is involved in this pick and roll, and so Breanna Stewart's in the paint now against Kelsey Plum, and like lo and behold, she finishes over Kelsey Plum because poor Kelsey just gets involved and he's over and over again.
Right.
There was actually one play in the third quarter that I really loved that didn't end up in a score where, they get a bunch of switches and I think Ezzy ends up on Kelsey Plum in the paint and Stewie is just pointing at Jewell like, get the ball to her, get the ball to her. And it ends up, in a wide open Sue Bird corner three, which doesn't go in. But just the process of them relentlessly hunting Plum could not have been fun for this, 2021 Olympian Kelsey Plum, but it was just a really interesting process to watch.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because we talk about, because you and I are both in agreement that like the isolation stuff, while I get that when you have a player like Jewell Loyd, a player like Breanna Stewart, like why wouldn't you want to give them some sets where you just say like, hey, go to work? But like there's so many different things you can do. Just a simple, we talked about this the last time we talked about a Storm game, the Storm Wings, is they love that 3-person action when Jewell is coming off of 2 screens. Sometimes Sue or Stewie have the ball. 3-person action, like, are they going to switch it? Can you curl that first screen? Can you come off of that second screen and turn the corner like all-time great Stephanie Talbot first step? And like the play you're talking about in the fourth, like, yeah, with a minute left to play, so many different things are happening. And then Mercedes Russell gets the ball and Sue calls for it back. And then it's that side pick and roll. And normally like Stewie will slip that, but she sets the screen on Asia. And I think Liz has to stunt out to prevent Sue from getting the shot off. And like Sue throws this like lofting pass and Brionna is rolling, and like I tweeted about this, like she has to like look up and find it in the air as she's rolling in stride, and like her footwork is perfect. I don't even know if she sees Kelsey. Like that's not a Kelsey is too small. Like I literally, like she looked up to
she
find
has
the ball.
to look up to get the ball, right?
Yeah. And I don't even know if she sees Kelsey, but she's able to catch perfect footwork, one dribble finish. Like it just. No, sorry. She doesn't even put the ball down.
She doesn't even dribble, I don't think. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're right. And she just
There's another one dribble finish, I think, against Kelsey Plum earlier in the game.
Yeah. I mean, the chemistry between the two of them is like obviously world ending. It's won multiple championships. Like she's so good.
There were some really nice lob passes thrown by both teams when they found like a switch inside. There's this one play in early in the fourth quarter when I'm not really sure what Chelsea and Asia are doing. They sort of like run past each other. It's not really a screen, but Seattle ends up switching it anyway. So then Stewie like scrams Jewell Loyd out of there so that she's not guarding Asia. And then Mercedes Russell scrams like, her out of there. And now we've got Jewell Loyd guarding Liz. And, was it Chelsea or Jackie Young? I think Chelsea just like sees, Liz being guarded by Jewell Loyd, like 3 defenders away, but just perfectly lobs it into where only Liz can catch it, and there we go.
And I mean, it's tough to marvel at because like obviously these are the best players in the world. These aren't easy things to do, period, but they're even harder things to recognize. Like you have to be many steps ahead in your basketball growth process to see, hey, I see that, and then even further to be like, oh yeah, I can make this.
Yeah. It's just really fun. Like I know we've talked about the Aces in the Storm a lot on the show, and like you said, we telegraphed that we were going to make this our game of the week about 10 days before it even happened, just because how could it not be? And then it goes into overtime and delivers us all this, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, they're just really good players, and I like talking about them. Right. Yeah. I mean, like we're talking about the ISOs, right? Like Jewell Loyd gets Hamby on an ISO like early in overtime, and she just, fades over Hamby, and it's like, that shouldn't happen. Like Dearica Hamby is an incredible defensive player. I don't even know how she made that shot. Like I wouldn't, possession sort of breaking down, but like that's just the talent level we're dealing with in terms of these offensive players. Like Olympian overall star, right? Like that's what's happening here.
Yeah, and it's like Jewell Loyd had a struggle all game, really. I mean, if you're just looking at the numbers, like 5 of 17, but like to be able to like stop, turn, and fade like that made something out of nothing, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great game for Loyd, right? She ends up committing the turnover like on the second to last possession on a pass to Mercedes Russell. kind of looks like Liz is holding Mercedes and she might have been able to catch it. But, incidental contact, whatever. So Loyd turns the ball over. Chelsea Gray just like pushes the ball down Seattle's throats. Loyd's behind her on the play because she, has fallen behind the basket. And then she not only gives up the basket to Chelsea, but then fouls her. And so now Seattle is down one. And now you're in a position where like the uneven scores are just so tense by the end of the game. And you're giving Chelsea Gray momentum. And you never want to give Chelsea Gray confidence at the end of the game. She's already got enough of it.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Can you? So I haven't. I didn't watch Overtime back. Does it include the Wired segments where they cut into the?
Yeah, where Bill Laimbeer is asking Chelsea if that's good for her. Yeah, and then she says, "You got it." He says, "You got it." Yeah. I also learned during that Wired segment that he calls Kelsey Plum, which I think is really smart, so that you don't get the Chelsea Kelsey confusion, which happens to us quite a bit. So something to note.
Well, I mean, it's not really an issue for us because we don't talk about them as much as, say, Bill does. But, interesting thing to, if you would like to go through the final play, I'm hands off. I just have a question after.
I'm just going to say that my favorite part of it is when he says, Plum, don't commit an offensive foul.
Yes. Because I
realize it's not the major takeaway from it.
No, that's what I wanted to tweet about that, but Chelsea just made such a great shot that what am I gonna do? Talk about a silly thing that I don't have
a good screen by Kelsey Plum that did not result in an offensive foul.
Yeah, the dream, a coach's dream. You instruct a player to do something, they do it, and you get the win.
Smartest man in basketball.
Bill, if you'd like to come on the show, I don't know what we'd talk about, but you're welcome. Okay. So on the other side of the Wired segment, Noah Quinn, you can hear her, I believe, talking about a switch because they hadn't done it all game. And in that specific situation, I believe they were talking about Katie Lou and Breanna Stewart switching. So I'm trying to go, my brain is working through this process because I watched the end first. I watched the second half live and I went back and rewatched the game. But so if the Storm hadn't been doing that all game and Bill Laimbeer did not know, I mean, he's the smartest man in basketball, obviously, so he might have known. He might have anticipated that chess move that they were going to switch. My question then is, why on earth would you want Breanna Stewart anywhere in the vicinity of that play? Which, no disrespect to Katie Lou Samuelson. She played great game.
She's just not Breanna Stewart.
No, there's no shame in that. Nobody is. Yeah. You have Chelsea on her. Why do you need that? The switch and the move she made to, hit the game-winning basket is something I feel that she would have been able to do without the screen. So, I mean, I'm quibbling over process here, but
maybe they thought if they weren't going to switch, then they could get Katie Lou trailing on the play to give Chelsea a little bit more space.
True. I'm good with that. That's as close as an answer as I'm going to get from Bill. So, yeah, I mean, it was just a strange thing to me that I don't necessarily know if I could ask Noelle Quinn a question, I would phrase it differently than did you outthink yourself here? Because it's not something that worked out. In an ideal world, that would have been the best stop because you orchestrate something, they're caught off guard, you win. They didn't. Still a great game. I want so many more.
Such a fun game. 5 of these, yes, please, in the playoffs. I think we're gonna get. If it happens, it'll be in the finals, right? Because it does look like these two are gonna be the top 2 seeds. I think Connecticut lost enough games while Jonquel was out to fall back, but. Yeah, they're 1 game back, whatever. So we'll see. Yeah. I mean, Connecticut played the Fever close the other day, which was strange. Did you watch that game?
No, I make it a point not to watch Fever games
Hey,
because
speaking of things that sparked joy for me this week, the Sparks getting Lauren Cox is kind of cool. I was really happy about that. Remember when I said I would only watch the Fever when Lauren Cox started playing?
yep,
Career high in minutes, game 1 with the Los Angeles Sparks. Looking forward to it.
that's a nail in the coffin for the Fever. I don't know if we're gonna get great coverage of them. You know what? One of these weeks, I'll go through and I'll find a bunch of plays that they run. I imagine it's not just Tierra McCowan, Kelsey Mitchell, pick and roll all day, every game, every minute. So maybe I'll find something to highlight. I don't know if I will, because viewer, if you've been with us since day one, I said Sabreena Ionescu was going to get 20 triple doubles this season because, I mean, she'd played the Fever twice, and I thought
We got
she was...
really high off of the first 2 games against the Fever. You were not alone. You were not alone.
No.
Don't worry about it.
So never again. Never again.
I mean, if we are not going to make outlandish predictions, like, then what is the point? You know?
That's true. Because, I mean, if you're wrong, then like people are like, okay, yeah. I mean, that was an unreasonable thing anyway. But if you're right, genius. Yeah. So I guess we can move on to like things we're looking forward to.
Yeah. So how about you go first, Evan? What are you looking forward to?
Oh, I don't. I'm confused. I talked to you about this. That the WNBA has made it a point to give us a day of rest on Mondays. But we don't have that anymore, so I don't know what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to, move our usual Twitter gabfest to Tuesdays this week because that is the day off for the WNBA. Weird, right?
Yeah, I do actually have something I'd like to ask you about. Not necessarily something I'm looking forward. Well, I guess I should say I'm looking forward to this, but so I can tee this up. Couple of weeks ago, you talked about doing something in about 2 weeks' time. I don't know if you remember it, but you sort of promised you'd give us a Sylvia Fowles nickname.
Oh, the mortician thing.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
I have not delivered on that.
Yeah, I won't put you... I'm not going to make you give us one today, but I look forward to getting that nickname at some point.
Yeah, I've put it in my notes now, so something to think about.
If you could deliver it maybe before the Olympic break, and then like we'll get it trending, and then people will talk about it during the Olympics.
Still
no
disappointed.
pressure.
Took Nneka's spot. Anyway, something I'm looking forward to is Tina Charles going back to New York for the first time. She had quite the revenge game when they first played each other, but that was in Washington. This time she gets to go back to New York, where presumably the fans will be happy to see her. I don't know. We'll see. I'm never too sure what's going to happen in these WNBA revenge games because on the whole, I think WNBA fans are mostly positive, but then you also get like the loud boos for like Chinea Ogwumike in Connecticut. So we'll see. I'm interested to see what the reception is like. And I'm also interested to see how both of these teams are looking because will Washington have more than 6 players? I don't know, but something to think about.
There are a bunch of them in the top 36 list, so it'd be nice if they came back.